Agriculture. It sustains us all and drives what we do. Growing food for tomorrow and growing tomorrow itself. Hand in hand, enriching lives, never settling, ever. We're growing progress by making every crop, field, farm stronger. We're growing progress by being the most innovative, most inclusive, most open agriculture company in the world. And our new role will bring more innovators to the table. Employees, producers, consumers, the best of the best. We'll work together, not just to meet standards, but to set them. We are Corteva Agriscience, and this is the company we're creating. We're one company. We're leading the way. We're growing progress. Introducing Corteva Agriscience.
Farming. It's maybe the oldest job that's always been obsessed with the latest technology. And once in a while, a discovery comes along that changes everything. Selective breeding did it, hybridization did it, and now CRISPR is doing it again. Corteva Agriscience is using a proprietary application of CRISPR to create stronger corn for farmers, offering crops without compromises. With this new approach, we can stack disease-resistant traits on the DNA faster, more efficiently, and more accurately, battling the crop's most pressing threats. More disease resistance, higher yield potential, supercharged. But corn is just the start. Multiply CRISPR's impact out across any crop susceptible to disease, any food system that's threatened. Countless challenges now met with a unique, sustainable solution. It's an R&D breakthrough that will create meaningful impact at a global scale. Corteva is redefining how we all keep growing. And this is just the beginning, because when we change farming, we change everything.
Jane, we can start. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third and last session of the webinar series on biotech innovations for sustainable agriculture. This activity is a build-up activity for the National Biotechnology Week organized by the DA Philippine Agriculture and Fisheries Biotechnology Program, ISA Inc., DA Bureau of Animal Industry, Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, and Corteva Agriscience. We now have 275 participants from the Philippines and other parts of the world. I'm Christine Tome from ISA Inc., and I am your moderator for this session. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having a fruitful discussion today. This 3-day series explores the role of biotech innovations in driving agricultural sustainability, providing solutions to some of the most pressing problems in agriculture sector and challenges surrounding it. So for those who have been with us since day one, you already know our house rules. But let me just quickly go through the house rules again in case we have first-time attendees today. So this webinar will run for 2 hours and will be recorded for documentation purposes. We are also live on ISA Facebook page and YouTube channel and other partner pages. So if you are on those social media platforms, feel free to click on the Zoom link provided there. So you can also join the discussions here on Zoom and get a copy of the certificate at the end of today's session. So make sure that you also have good internet connection so you won't miss any of the discussions. To those who are in the panel, kindly turn off your camera and keep your microphones on mute unless it is your turn to speak. We have ample time for the open forum later, so if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen for any questions and clarifications you may have. Don't forget to indicate to whom you are directing the question. You may also use the raise hand button and we will allow you to speak. At the end of our discussions, these and everyone, we will ask you to answer a post-webinar survey. This will be the basis of the issuance of your certificate of participation. Slide decks and the recording will be available on the ISA website next week. So if these are clear to everybody, let's start our session. To give us the opening remarks, we have Dr. Abraham Manalo. Doc Abe is a policy analyst with work on biotechnology and biosafety regulation. He obtained his doctorate in public administration from UP Diliman, where he also took his master's in statistics and in public administration, major in public policy. He is currently an assistant professor at the National College of Public Administration and Governance at UP Diliman. Doc Abe is the executive secretary of the Biotechnology Coalition of the Philippines, a nonprofit organization working for the safe and responsible use of modern biotechnology. Doc Abe, we are honored to have you today.
Maraming salamat, Tin. Maraming salamat sa lahat. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And welcome to today's webinar, the third in a series of biotech innovations for a sustainable agriculture discussion, being brought to you by the Department of Agriculture Biotech Program Office in partnership with the Bureau of Animal Industry, the International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications, Corteva Agri-Science, and the Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, to which I belong. And I'm very honored to be in partnership with these illustrious organizations. As Tin has already informed us, the webinar series is a build-up activity to the much-anticipated 19th National Biotech Week in the Philippines. That will be conducted for the first time outside of Metro Manila in the sunny city of Cebu. Under its visionary theme, Empowering Innovations for Sustainable Future with Biotechnology, the National Biotech week-long celebration stands as a testament to the power of biotechnology in forging a sustainable and resilient future in our country and around the globe. It will also highlight the transformative role of biotechnology in addressing many of the most pressing challenges of our times. The 19th NBW is an opportunity for scientists, researchers, policymakers, and the general public to come together to help showcase the latest development in modern biotechnology and help chart a course for the safe and responsible use of biotechnological solutions. Our webinar today is a crucial step in that journey, looking at the challenges and potentials for biotech innovation, the important issue of social licensing, and a very good example on how a biotech product has been commercialized in the Philippines with important impact around the globe. So our webinar is setting the stage where innovation and sustainability are not just buzzwords, but actionable paths that we commit to exploring and materializing our collective vision for biotechnology. With this in mind, let us approach today's session with the understanding that our conversations are part of a larger national dialogue about the role of biotechnology. And as we proceed with today's session, I encourage all participants to engage with our speakers, very illustrious names, Dr. Paul Teng, Dr. Wayne Parrott, and of course our very own Dr. Ronan Zagado. Not only illustrious speakers, but personally for me, dear friends from way back. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagpapaunlak. Thank you for our speakers. And to our participants, please do consider active participation. Be ready with your questions or your comments, and be ready to be enjoyed, to be entertained, to be educated with our webinar today. With that, maraming salamat po ulit. Thank you very much for joining us. Tin, back to you.
Thank you so much, Doc Abe. I hope everyone is now ready for some learning and reflection because we are now starting our first topic for today. Our resource speaker is Dr. Paul Teng, Managing Director and Dean at the National Institute of Education International in Singapore, and concurrently Senior Fellow on Food Security at Rajaratnam School of International Studies in NTU. He also holds honorary appointments as an adjunct professor at Murdoch University and senior fellow at the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Research and Graduate Studies in Agriculture. He is the chair of ISA Inc. and chairman of the board of Asia Biobusiness. To talk about the potential and challenges of using bio-innovation in a sustainable economy, let's give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Paul S. Teng.
Thank you very much, Tin. Can you see my slides and hear me?
Yes, all is good.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind invitation to participate in this webinar series. Coincidentally, I just came back from Kuala Lumpur last night, where they are also having their National Biotechnology Symposium. And Malaysia seems to be having a renaissance to apply biotechnology, because the symposium was opened by the Minister of Science himself. So it just shows the importance that I think ASEAN is finally waking up to the importance of biotechnology. You have heard some excellent presentations these last 2 days on biotechnology. My charge was to go beyond just biotechnology to talk about bioinnovation. Sorry, let me just... So bioindustry is very broad and inclusive. It's more than just biotechnology. So what I'll try and cover in the next 19 minutes or so is, first of all, to kind of, scope out what we're going to talk about, especially in the context of a sustainable economy, which is the topic I was asked to address, and then the challenges that related to SDGs, bioinnovation technologies, and so on, and also share some aspects of what it takes to really make a discovery into an innovation that is widely accepted. So what are the kind of attributes of sustainable economy? I think those of us who are old enough will remember the Brundtland report, the Commission on Environment and Development back in 1987, where the former Norwegian Prime Minister who chaired this committee said that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So very broad definition indeed. If we start unpacking what the Brundtland report says, there are several features of a sustainable economy that we can recognize, right? And for which we can see biotechnology and bioinnovations playing a role. First is regenerative and a circular economy, which I think almost everybody agrees on, easier to say than to implement. And this involves both agriculture, aqua, livestock, novel food, and so on. And importantly, a sustainable economy has to meet the needs for food, health, water, transport, housing for all. And also there's a question of equality and equity in economic opportunities, adequate human capital, possibly fosters higher employment, and also meaningful job creation, I think, in a sustainable economy. Of course, with today's concerns about the environment, minimal to no negative externalities from human activities, right? And then back to the context, though, it has to meet the ES or ESG rubrics of sustainability. ES is economic, environment, and social, and ESG is environmental, social, and governance. And I think we're all familiar with the SDGs. And I think part of this week was going to explore how biotechnology, in fact, contributes to helping us meet the SDGs, and the target date is not that far away. So I took the liberty of trying to reflect a little bit on what are the outcomes from bioinnovations that can support sustainable development or sustainable economy. If you look at all the SDGs, these are the main ones that I feel that bioinnovations can play a role. I mean, SDG 1, obviously, no poverty, employment creation. We've seen how the biotechnology has really spurred the formation of a sub-sector in most national economies. And I can speak from the Singapore experience, where our use of so-called biotechnologies and bioinnovations has really accelerated in the last few years, partly because of COVID. Of course, no hunger, food security. There's been a lot that has been discussed, I think, during this webinar series on growing more food, quality food, and so on. And that leads to the SDG 3, which is nutrition security. I won't talk about the others because I think they're pretty obvious. But I just want to highlight SDG 13, climate action. I think in the context of the concern about greenhouse gases, this has surfaced as a real hot button issue, especially in ASEAN, where green mitigation and adaptation technologies have really surfaced as a high priority. As many of us know, rice is so important in the ASEAN region. And the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, especially methane, is actually rice. So in Southeast Asia, we cannot tackle greenhouse gas emission reduction without tackling rice itself. And that's a whole complex of issues on its own. So let me move on. And let's ask the question, of the challenges within SDGs to which bioinnovations can really contribute. I think it's also pretty obvious from your last, 2 days of discussions that, bioinnovations can address all dimensions of food security, from the availability to the access to the stability, right? It can definitely help reduce greenhouse gases, and I'll share a bit of data from ISR on that later on. It certainly helps maintain farming livelihoods, the productivity issue, because as we all know, smallholder farmers in the ASEAN region, Asia Pacific, need a decent livelihood to continue farming. And of course, finally, to feed a growing urban population, right, by maintaining or increasing production. I think we all heard the statistics, ASEAN, Asia is becoming more urban since 2008. And we have to do something about, really feeding the growing urban population. And then this century has been touted as a biology century, which includes, of course, the influence of digital technologies, since the third industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution. Now, just to kind of get us on the same page, though, I mean, there is a diverse range of bio-innovations. Biotechnology is just one of them. Okay, of course, embedded within biotechnology, especially crop biotechnology, as a whole set of applications, including GM plants, biotech crops. In other words, market is like the crops, biofertilizer, and so on and so forth. Actually, but let's not forget that in the context of a sustainable economy, there are many other aspects involved in producing food, because food security is very fundamental to being a sustainable economy, having one, right? And this slide I've just illustrated some of these points here. I mean, livestock, growing demand for animal protein, in the Asia Pacific, it's just phenomenal, and we have to do something about that. Especially producing more animal feed, the application of natural products, and so on. By the way, I'm very happy to share these slides after the webinar, so don't feel compelled to copy it and look at every particular point itself. Yeah. So I want to move on now. In terms of what bioinnovation technologies can offer, to help us really obtain a sustainable economy, I want to kind of produce some features and benchmark against these features. Obviously, new crop varieties, fish animal breeds, using the GM, gene editing, or now we talk a lot about gene editing plus, beyond just CRISPR. Okay? There's a whole suite of technologies now that are being developed in the private sector in particular to actually maximize the utility of gene editing and the fact that, it is not as regulated as GM crops. So faster time to market indeed. Huh? Production of inputs. In the meeting in Malaysia, there was a lot of concern about fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, and the impact it's having on the soil and soil health. And discussion indeed, on how we can actually build more biofertilizers, either microbial or through degradation of plant materials, especially cellulose. Yeah? There was fish and animal health, and vaccines, genetics, all coming into play now as part of a sustainable economy. Then bioenergy via microbial digestion, enzymes and food ingredients, and in particular, the example of novel food that really is built fundamentally on biotechnology, precision fermentation, really. And then the big question of food loss reduction and waste valorization. How do we convert, the 30 or 40% of food that's wasted into something of value? Again, embedded in that is biotechnology, whether we like it or not. And then coming lastly, circularity in this particular sector. How do we achieve that? Okay, now I'm sure you've seen this many times. Just want to use this as an example. In crop agriculture, biotechnology crops have really been played a major role. I think we're all familiar with the figures, the adoption rate. Like the latest figures we have from ISR, that over 190 million hectares grown in 26 countries, and so on. Right, over 70 countries, approving GM products for food, feed, and processing. If you're not familiar with these statistics, I urge you to go into the ISR database where all these figures are there, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the next generation genome editing, one example is GIGS, induced gene silencing. Okay? And the products are very obvious to help us grow more, also to reduce food waste and adapt to climate change, all of which are components that contribute to a sustainable economy. Just put this in, as amplification for those of you who will receive the slides. Bit of promotion here for ISA, I must say. Now, I mentioned the fact that, in this climate where we're very concerned, but not just about production, but about maintaining livelihoods, also trying to reduce the contribution of agriculture to greenhouse gas emission. These are just some figures from ISA that was done under a contract with another third party. Again, the figures speak for themselves. I think in the case of biotechnology crops, I think there's very definitive evidence to show its contribution to productivity gain, the cost of production, the economic benefits are immense, and of course, savings of CO2 emissions through the reduced use of fossil fuel and so on and so forth. Again, I need to hurry because I'm running out of time. Now, if you look at food security, and this is a particular, important topic as an underpinning to a sustainable economy, bioinnovations, in particular biotech crops, help us accomplish all these things in food production. Surplus food production, labor-saving technology, reducing negative externalities, reducing environmental stress, and helping us to cope with biotech stress, nutrition safety, trade in food, and so on, really. I'm repeating myself here, but I thought it's really important to emphasize this, to understand why and how important the work we're doing is in terms of contributions to a sustainable economy. Now, I want to spend the last few minutes of my time here to talk about innovation. Ideas, as the old expression says, are a dime a dozen. To get from discoveries and ideas to actual product, and I know the third speaker will touch a bit on that, really involves a lot of work that often is beyond the scientists and beyond the lab. Even FAO, the Food Agriculture Organization, has gotten into this particular aspect of let's say, sustainability, that you need to promote innovations. And innovations are not innovations until they are turned into something that is widely used in practice. That's a very important distinction between the scientific discovery in the lab, even a simple, field test, right? The question of scalability. Okay? So it's important that the originators of ideas understand at the outset what is involved in moving from concept to product, how enterprises are grown, and in the end, we have indeed bio-innovation. Okay? We may have lots of interesting scientific ideas, but they're not innovations yet. Okay? So in that context, I've in the last few years, I've gotten more and more involved, in the commercialization of bioproducts. And this is very key because whether we like it or not, while government has the important role in early and late stages of commercialization, it's the private sector that's really quite key. And if we look at the movement from concept or idea all the way to let's say, growth in the marketplace, profit and market share, you have to go through so many stages, and many of them, unfortunately, require funding to do, right? And what I've tried to show you in this particular slide, I know many scientists don't like to talk about money to commercialize, but this is actually very critical for us at this stage of the game. Unless we can fund startups to take ideas to fruition, we're going to see a lot of our discoveries just sitting, either in the bench or in publications without getting, further in the farmers' fields. So some of these terms may be new to some of you. I hope not to most of you. The fact that venture capital exists in today's context, it's amazing how much the private sector, through private capital, is investing now in this whole big area of agriculture technology, food technology, and fintech that is helping us to address the key issues around the world in sustainability, especially with respect to mitigating greenhouse gases. Now, there are things called angel investors, the accelerators, public grants, and so on, some of which are public, but most of which are, in fact, private sector fueled. Okay? Now, I also want to introduce you to the fact that many, many discoveries don't see the light of day. Okay? Even though, they might be very appealing. And this is where this slide here attempts to really depict what those of us who know a bit about investment call the valley of death, VOD. Okay, there's a valley of death that all commercializations have to go through. Okay, and many startup enterprises do not survive this valley of death, unfortunately. That's how important it is to recognize at the outset. Once you have a discovery, how do you get it out to the marketplace, to the consumer, or to the farmer, or to other stakeholders in the bigger ecosystem, right? Most of us probably are involved in the early stages, what we call the TRL, technology readiness levels 1 and 2. Okay, basic principles, technology concept, also proof of concept. In many cases, I think in the Philippines, for example, things don't get past the proof of concept, into prototype, into validation somehow, that then gets scaling up. And this is where passing this valley of death is so important, VOD, right? Making sure that bio-innovations get to see the light of day, very key indeed. Now, what are some enablers to make sure that bio-innovations in fact become reality? And this is, it's not rocket science, it's actually stating the obvious. We need supportive government policies, regulations, and instruments. And it's really, so pleasurable to see the Philippines, having taken the lead in the case of crop biotechnology, in terms of policies, regulations, also instruments to make things happen. Financing mechanisms, engagement of capital markets, and this concerns not just small enterprises, also multinationals like Corteva, Bayer, and so on, to make sure that we bring innovations to innovation. Then, of course, human capital development. Again, using the Philippines as an example, because excellent human capital development facilities in the Philippines, a production and marketing ecosystem, infrastructure for R&D, commercial enterprise, and also the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. I usually like to tell the people that Filipinos are amongst the most enterprising, in terms of culture, amongst populations that I know in the ASEAN region. And then, of course, inclusiveness mechanism, and then finally social licensing, which Dr. Perry will talk about quite a bit. So overall, a successful agri-food innovation system requires an ecosystem in which many components function well individually, but derive synergies when working together. This is a report that we did in Asia Biobusiness for a certain government in the Middle East. Now, just to illustrate that, in Singapore, for example, in the last 5 years, we've actually grown a multi-component agri-food ecosystem. Even though Singapore is such a tiny country, only grows 10% of its own food, we try to pride ourselves that we're making headway in creating some new approaches and some new technologies to have applications overseas. Okay, but this could not have happened without an ecosystem supporting it. In terms of the different circles here show different players in the ecosystem, from multinationals, the small institutions, the education institutions, to kind of regulators, and so on. So you need an ecosystem coming together, actually, and being coordinated to help focus on some key priorities in bio-innovation. I'm just going to finish off here and keep within time to say that, moving forward in terms of a sustainable economy, all of us who are listening into this webinar, we have an important role to play. I think we've all heard the figures, and I don't want to share too much on the key challenges, but by 2030, it is likely that 8% of the world population will still be undernourished. And because we're such an interlinked world, what happens here within Asia, within ASEAN, will be impacted by and will impact the rest of the world, right? And the simple arithmetic is that we need to increase food supply. I mean, different figures, 50%, 70% by 2050. So with that, I'm going to finish off and stick to my timing by sharing with you a forthcoming book where we've got 27 chapters that address all the key food security issues in Asia. And no excuses made, because Asia is where most of the world's people live, where most of the poor people are, and where, amazingly, some of the most surprising innovations are coming about from discoveries. Yeah. So I urge you to get your library to buy a copy. And the chapter authors are like IRI, for example, to write about the future of rice, World Vegetable Center, to write about the future of vegetables, livestock, ILRI, and so on, plus private entities. So with that, Maraming Salamat, thank you so much. And I think I've kept to my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Teng, for being very mindful of your time. And that was really an interesting presentation. So if you have questions for our first topic, kindly enter them through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And then we'll go through them later during the open forum. Let us now proceed to the second topic of our session, which will be discussed by Dr. Wayne Parrott. Dr. Parrott obtained his PhD in plant breeding and plant genetics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He joined the faculty at the University of Georgia in 1998 and is now a distinguished research professor. He conducts research on the development, use, and safety of transgenic and edited crop plants. He published over 120 journal articles in refereed publications and 15 book chapters. He served as chair of the biotechnology section of the Crop Science Society of America and of the plant section of the Society for In Vitro Biology, and is a fellow of both of these societies and of AAAS. He is now the secretary for the American Society of Plant Biology. He has advised governments around the world on the requisites for a functional regulatory system for GM products. He also served on the task forces that develop best practice guides for GMO food and feed safety evaluation. So to talk about the concept of social license for bioinnovation, let us all welcome Dr. Wayne Parrott.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that introduction, Christine, and thank you for the invitation to be here this morning. And this is not my first time speaking at the Philippine National Biotechnology Week. I just think it is phenomenal that any nation would consider biotech sufficiently important to give it a national week, and I really congratulate you for that. So I was asked to talk about the social license, and it was challenging because it's not a topic that we have given enough thought to. It's only now that we're trying to not repeat mistakes of the past, where people have not accepted technology, that we're really starting to grasp the concept of a social license. So I want to start with this graph. It's by the United States Department of Agriculture, and it is one of my absolute favorite graphs. It starts collecting data right after World War II ended. And what you see on the one hand is the yield in the past 75 years and the inputs in agriculture. And you notice that we really are not using more inputs than we were at the end of World War II, but our yield has just about tripled. And that is just an amazing scientific accomplishment to get more for less. It is what sustainability is all about. And our challenge then, as we go forward, is to continue to increase the yield, but not increase the inputs. In part, we have done this through having better agronomic technology, our crop protection chemicals, our equipment, and so forth. But a big part, perhaps the biggest part of this whole thing has been genetic improvement, both conventional improvement and biotech improvement. Without that, we would never, ever have achieved these yield gains. But some types of this genetic improvement have simply not been appreciated by the public at large. And you can see the rejection, sometimes very creatively. You can see the rejection that this technology has obtained despite the big opportunities for sustainability and economic development, like Paul just talked about before me. So what causes technology rejection? And more than legal permission is needed. You know, just because something is legal to do does not automatically make it okay to do. We really need to have community approval for the products and the activities that we do. And it is this community approval that is called the social license. And if we're going to operate successfully and launch technologies that are going to help our society, we have to have a social license, something that was pretty much ignored in the past. So what is the social license? And it's considered to have 3 stages to it. It's a process that you have to go through to obtain it. You have to have legitimacy. And by legitimacy, that means that what you're doing is according to social customs, the culture, or the norms of the region that you're operating in. And if you're legitimate, it's going to lead to credibility. And credibility, I think, can best be explained as transparency, that you do not hide what you're doing. You're always explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it. And thirdly, then, if you continue being transparent, you will eventually earn trust and social license. And the trust stage also means that what you say you are doing has to match what you're actually doing. There can be no hypocrisy in what you do. Now, what these 3 stages have in common is the need for communication. There has to be very active communication with the public at large. So historically, here are some ads from some companies. And quite frankly, these have been very effective ads for farmers, which was perhaps the primary consumer, but not the ultimate consumers. And, urban, this population in a city buying produce from a supermarket is not going to identify with these products or with these images the way a farmer will. So when you had the product providers communicating with farmers, and then you had a whole bunch of other groups communicating to consumers. And they did so very effectively. So where we get to is this situation where scientists, we're so fact-oriented. The companies selling to farmers were very fact-oriented. And because of the training that we have, we sort of assume that the public at large is going to oppose something simply because they don't know the facts. And we assume that if we just give them the facts, they will come to accept whatever we're trying to do. And this is flat wrong. Ad communicator Kevin Folta said it very well, that this approach of just giving facts is never going to work in a world that's driven by emotion and sensationalism. The pictures I showed you on my previous slide were emotional and sensationalist. So first things first is everyone trying to communicate on technology must not act like such a scientist. We have to be common human beings, carry on conversations the way we would carry them on with a good friend over dinner, and not be pretentious or use scientific terminology. So communicating facts is not nearly enough. Another science communicator, Jack Bogle, uses the phrase that if you lead with science, you're going to lose with science. And the reason is that shared values are much, much more effective at earning trust from your audience than just giving facts out. Maha is a colleague of mine, also a very effective communicator, and she recently published Things We Did Wrong and Should Not Repeat. And she, I think, did a really great job of getting some effective points. She mentions that we must be honestly communicating. This is, with all the pros and cons, and not just doing propaganda. Hey, this is the best thing on earth and you need to have it, or the worst thing on earth and you need to avoid it. Be honest. And she also points out that communication is not just about giving information. It's not just the facts. We must have shared values that come across in our communication, and the data we present must have a soul. In other words, it must have a human aspect. Why is it important for our audience to know this? Why is it, how is it going to affect them? And tell a story with your data. It's been said that as a scientist, our ability to tell our story has become as important to our careers as knowing how to design experiments. And the science of storytelling has come a long way. When we hear a story, our brain releases dopamine that makes it easier to remember the message. There's something called neurocoupling that takes place, whereby we start thinking of our own experiences that might be similar to the story being told, and that makes it easier to identify with it. And we even start synchronizing our brain activities with those of the speaker. The net result is that we connect people with an emotional level, means they're going to trust us more. And people are more receptive then. They lower their defenses to hear things different from what they're used to hearing. So what is important for effective communication if we are ever going to establish a social license? We have to have empathy, trust, shared values, and emotion. Facts are not that important. So along those lines, the Center for Food Integrity here in the United States has established a group called the Coalition for Responsible Gene Editing in Agriculture. And they have this PDF. It's available on the web if you search for it. And it has some wonderful advice on how to communicate with the public. And it helps you explain why this knowledge is relevant to them and how it will benefit to them. In other words, the soul or the human aspect of the message. And again, how to get your shared values and generate trust with the audience you're trying to reach. Along with that, we have come up with what's called a framework for responsible use of gene editing in agriculture. It's a really new effort. If you want to see how new this effort is, this was released just a few days ago. But what this talks about, it's really a code of conduct. Whereby you agree, you're explaining why you use gene editing, that, explaining that we didn't arrive at the decision to use gene editing in a casual way. We're not doing it because it's trendy or because we can. We're doing it because it is after thoughtful consideration, it is the best solution to solve a lot of problems and benefit the environment, benefit the consumers. We're not acting recklessly. And in fact, it is the way we can respond to a lot of the social needs that are pressing at this time. And we're taking responsibility for the actions that we do. And we also, part of this code of conduct is to be transparent at all times. everyone needs to know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and if asked, we will tell. And along with that then comes verification. It's not just, you don't have to take my word that I'm doing this. There is a third party that will validate our actions and vouch that it is true and real. Inherent to all of this is transparency. And the Center for Food Integrity has come for 7 elements in communication that help build trust. You know, where you share all your information publicly is disclosure, where the participation, where you hear what your stakeholders have to say and how you're telling them why it's important to them. And you are telling it in a way that is clear and easy to understand and accurate. So of these 7 elements, 5 of these involve language communication, and the other 2, the credibility and the motivation, has to do with the way we act. Again, actions, you know, what we do, you know, actions speak louder than words is a common refrain here in the United States. The final component to all of this is stewardship. And stewardship is a collection of guidelines that we as scientists need to take to avoid violating the public trust. And it is, again, about scientists taking responsibility for what we do. And just to give you one example, is there's a standard that we're working with editing or we're working with GMOs. No seed should ever be left behind. In other words, escape. It is so easy for seeds to escape. This is a real photo from my lab. Somebody was not careful, dropped a transgenic seed, and somebody stepped on it. And if it had not been found, he could have walked outside and dropped it near the greenhouses and grown up. So, you know, what procedures are we as scientists doing to prevent unwanted release of the things we do in the lab? So, again, through this excellence through stewardship, we're helping everyone come up with best practices to really respect the public and any concerns that they may have. So here's the biggest challenge, in my opinion, though. The social license is local. At least the way we obtain social licenses in this day and age is local. But the players are global, and that's a problem that we need to overcome. Just to give you a couple of examples, here's the Stop Golden Rice Network. It's a regional network composed of more than 30 organizations across Asia, a huge area. Or this is a photo of the destruction of the golden rice trials that took place in the Philippines 10 years ago. And that was funded by the Swedish, the group that organized this was funded by the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. That group received almost $500,000 over 6 years, and 100,000 for the year that this destruction took place. And the reason this agency was funding this group is because they didn't want corporations to force small farmers to large-scale agriculture. And I think anyone that understands golden rice will understand that golden rice is not about large-scale agriculture at all. So again, a lot of misconceptions here. So the challenge that I want to leave all of you with is, how do we go from a local social license to a global one? What are the, can you define the communication strategies that we have to employ in order to get global social licenses. I think that is the immediate major challenge that we face. And I also think that with social media, we have unprecedented opportunities to pull this off. So that's your homework, all of you who are listening. So with that, I will stop and really thank you for your attention. And again, congratulations on having a biotechnology week.
Thank you, Dr. Parrott. Again, everyone, please place your questions in the Q&A box. And now let's proceed to the last and final talk this morning. Dr. Ronan Zagado is the Chief Science Research Specialist and lead of the Golden Rice Program of the Department of Agriculture, Philippine Rice Research Institute. His fields of specialization include science communication, technology transfer and deployment, stakeholder engagement, and advocacy. He earned his PhD degree in Media Studies from the University of Adelaide, South Australia, MS in Development Communication with a cognate in Community Development from the University of the Philippines, Las Bañas, and BS in Development Communication, major in Development Journalism from Central Mindanao University. To discuss about catalyzing a sustainable delivery system for golden rice, we are happy to have you today, Dr. Ronan Zagado.
Hi, good morning. A pleasant morning to everyone. It's good to be participating in this conversation. So what I'm going to do is to share with you a local narrative of how a biotech product, particularly golden rice, has been put into use. And as you have known already, we got the biosafety permit for the commercial propagations of golden rice in July of 2021. So it's barely around 2 years that we've done our deployment work. So my topic focuses on catalyzing a sustainable delivery system for golden rice. And I agree with Wayne that despite, even if we already got the biosafety permit, that doesn't mean that we're already good to go for deployment, because based on our experience, which I will be sharing with you later, indeed, there are a lot of challenges, cultural, political, and social in nature that we need to deal with to be able to really smoothly deploy the product to the communities in need. So to begin my presentation, let's watch this video.
The golden rice journey in the Philippines has not been without challenges, but it has arrived where it has now through concerted efforts of all stakeholders. In July 2021, the Philippines' Department of Agriculture Bureau of Plant Industry granted the biosafety permit for the commercial propagation of golden rice to the Philippine Rice Research Institute, or PhilRice, thus completing the rigorous process of the government to ensure a science-based decision. In April 2022, golden rice was registered with the Philippine National Seed Industry Council with a common name Malusog 1, which in Filipino means healthy. Golden rice has likewise been assessed to be as safe as ordinary rice, with the added benefit of beta-carotene in the grains by the Food Standards Australia New Zealand, Health Canada, and the United States Food and Drug Administration. To promote acceptance of golden rice as a new product to complement existing nutrition interventions, communication and social marketing strategies are being implemented. Policy advocacy and stakeholder engagement play key roles in ensuring that deployment and adoption of golden rice are supported at the national and local levels, and ultimately integrated in agriculture and nutrition programs of the government. The success of the Golden Rice program in the Philippines so far is a testament to its successful collaboration with its partners in the country.
Ronan, you're mute.
Sorry. Yep. Yes, golden rice has now been registered in the Philippines as malusog rice, and malusog rice in malusog means healthy in the Philippines, and it's a type of rice that contains beta carotene, a source of vitamin A, and gives the grain its golden color. And it is the first GM rice with nutritional benefits, and the Philippines is the first country to approve its commercial propagation. Now, so our objective is to catalyze a delivery system. No? So we have a program at PhilRice that looks into the deployment work of golden rice. And in terms of how are we going to go about this, we're not going to really reinvent the wheel. No, we will leverage existing channels, and we believe that to be able to successfully deploy golden rice, it requires this interplay of supply, demand, and governance as the central framework for deploying golden rice. The supply component ensures availability and accessibility of golden rice, both as seeds and milled rice. And the demand component raises product awareness, promote public acceptance, and induce desirable behaviors for uptake. And I'd like to add here the important role of communication, as mentioned by Wayne, in generating social license, which I will actually discuss later. And then thirdly, we need governance to create an enabling environment, or to create a science-based supportive policy and also governing structures to ensure successful deployment of golden rice, especially at the local government units where, you know, ultimately golden rice will be positioned at the communities. As I've mentioned earlier, we will not reinvent the wheel. No, we will leverage existing channels. And in the Philippines, in rice, for instance, there are two seed systems. Just for our appreciations, there are two seed systems for commercializing new rice varieties. The first one is the formal seed system, and it comes with a seed certification process, which means that the seeds that will be produced and commercialized will have to undergo seed certification. The second system is the informal seed system, and it is true especially with the use of inbred rice, no, or inbred rice varieties, where farmers produce and save the seeds for next planting. So they don't certify the seeds. And this is still happening in some areas in the Philippines, although we've been doing extensive campaign to encourage, you know, the use of certified seeds, but there are still areas in the Philippines that observe informal seed system. But at PhilRice, generally, we follow the formal seed system. So everything that all the seeds that we commercialize, no, we sell, we promote, have to be certified. However, since golden rice has a unique characteristic, no, it has this yellow color. The National Seed Industry Council is trying to come up with a new seed certification guideline specific for golden rice, and it is currently being finalized by the National Seed Industry Council, and therefore we are not yet operating in full swing product commercialization. So we're still operating in a pilot scale deployment, aimed at promoting the product still. Now, in terms of how do we intend to roll out the product, we're looking at two pathways. The first one, of course, is the market-driven approach. So again, eventually, golden rice will enter into the existing market channels. No, so here we will strategically position malusog rice in existing rice market channels. And at the moment, we're doing value chain analysis and consumer retailer acceptability, doing some marketing and promotion, and also product and recipe development. But ultimately, again, as mentioned earlier, golden rice was really designed to address a particular nutrition problem, especially vitamin A deficiency. And it has been donated by the inventors for humanitarian purposes. So we want to direct golden rice into that directions. And we call this the program-based approach. Here, we will tap existing nutrition programs, including agriculture and nutrition programs. So again, there are already existing programs However, based on the data of the DOST Food and Nutrition Council, despite the fact that there are already successful nutrition programs, there are still populations that have been missed out. And this is where golden rice can help as an additional tool in the basket of interventions. So we want to integrate golden rice into the existing programs. So here it requires a lot of partnerships and policy lobbying, especially with the local government unit. And we're looking at contract growing here as the mode of production. Now, let me tackle one by one each component of our strategies. No? So in terms of ensuring supply, this is the process. No? So we've done already the biosafety regulatory review. We got the permit in July of 2021. And the next step that we've done is the varietal registration of golden rice. So we already have one variety of malusog rice registered with the National Seed Industry Council, and we intend to register 5 more, or we'll see if they're currently doing multi-location trial. We'll see their field performance, and we're gathering their agronomic data for which is necessary for the varietal registrations, and we'll see if they perform well. If the 5 golden rice lines perform well, then we will register them. But that's the plan. So after varietal registrations, then we will produce the seed, no? And as you can see in this slide, the seed increase is being done by the breeding institutions. And then the other seed classes such as the nucleus, breeder, foundation, and registered, this is being done by field rice. And please note that to produce each seed class, it would require 1 cropping season or 3 to 4 cropping seasons. So our estimate is that it would take around 4 to 5 cropping seasons, not including the production of certified seeds, before it can ultimately reach the farmer, for commercial planting. Okay, so as I've mentioned earlier, again, we're still awaiting for the seed certification guideline to be finalized, and therefore we are still at the seed testing stage, and we're using high quality seeds from field rice. It was also mentioned by Wayne earlier, the importance of stewardship. So we also make sure that we have stewardship plan in place to ensure product purity, product integrity, and traceability, manage critical control points, and establish mitigating measures. And then especially the main product of field rice is really seeds. So we make sure that the seeds that we produce is really of high quality. So we make sure that we have all the protocols, SOPs that are anchored on existing quality standards in place at field rice. And again, the seed certification guideline that is being done by NSIC, BBI NSIC, that also, I would say, a part of the stewardship. And then at field rice, we have this seed-to-seed information system to ensure traceability. And then before we distribute, or prior to seed transfer and utilization, we also make sure that we do briefing and training to our farm workers or stakeholders. So we are now on our 3rd planting of golden rice. So golden rice is currently cultivated in 10 regions and 18 provinces in the country. And it performs similar to the popular varieties. Our farmers can attest that it uses the same crop management practices and inputs, and therefore, a lot of people would ask us about the price. So it's ultimately the same as popular varieties. And during the last cropping season, the highest yield we got from golden rice was 8.3 ton per hectare. That's way high, given that the average yield in the Philippines is only 4 tons per hectare. So it's quite competitive. Now, in terms of building demand, we've actually, communication in our program has been in place, even at the research stage, and then in the regulatory, and now at the deployment stage. So we've shifted our work from science communication to marketing communication. And this time, now that we are at the deployment stage, the objective is to create demand and promote desirable behaviors towards the propagation, marketing, and consumption of malusog rice as an alternative rice varieties for farmers. Well, ultimately, it's farmers' decision which variety to choose, but we're offering this as an alternative rice variety for farmers, not to mention a source of income also. And then a source of income for traders, wholesalers, and retailer, and an additional source of nutrition for consumers, especially for VAD populations in the target areas. So we've identified these gaps when we did our baseline survey in the target areas. So apparently there's a low awareness on golden rice or on malusog rice, especially on the benefits of golden rice. There's unwillingness or low level of willingness to propagate and consume golden rice. There's also a perception that the price of malusog rice may be comparable to specialty rice, and there's a lack of enabling environment. So to be able to address this, we use a combined approach of interpersonal communication, mass communication, social marketing, and of course, risk communications with the following activities. Like we produce, distribute knowledge products and marketing collaterals. We've conducted information briefings, dialogues. We've set up exhibits in various occasions. And we've done other marketing strategies like farm walk, cook fest, and taste test. We also tap our media partners to help us amplify our messages. We mobilized the info network. No, I mean, we cannot do it alone. So we need to mobilize our info networks at multiple levels. And then lastly, we make sure that there's a mechanism that addresses emerging issues. So just to show to you some of our work, especially in terms of the knowledge product and marketing materials that we've produced. So these are some of the materials that we produce. So some photos on the exhibits that we've done. I think the pictures can speak for themselves. So we've done this promotion during the market testing. Yeah, we also did Cook Fest. This was in Isabela, and it was participated by mainly by housewives. We've done vlog challenge also. And we've also distributed promotional packs to stakeholders. And this picture here, this is part of the acceptability study where we initially distribute malusog rice to housewives. No? And we're looking at this packaging design. So we were also doing taste testing. Techno demo. So the techno demo is basically intended for farmers. And we've organized a farm walk to showcase to the farmers and other stakeholders the field performance of malusog rice. We've also capitalized on mainstream media as well as social media. And these are some of the contents that we prepared. Yep, so this was the baseline that I was talking about earlier. When we did this, we've interviewed 1,400 farmers, and they didn't know about golden rice during the time. So there was low awareness. But the good thing is that there's interest. After we've introduced golden rice through a video presentations, we've also done briefing, actual briefing. Then they were very appreciative. They're very excited of golden rice. And these are some of the things that actually they remember about golden rice. They think that golden rice is a good quality rice. It's safe for human consumption. Golden rice has improved nutritional quality. It's good for pregnant and lactating women. And we can really say that communication is very important in raising awareness. And not only that, we've probed further and asked them in terms of their willingness to plant, willingness to consume, willingness to sell, willingness to integrate golden rice to their programs. And as you can see, the figures are quite impressive. They're very interested. So this is also to show to you our initial result on the acceptability study that we've done, especially this is in Catanduanes. And these are their statements. Now, they like it, and they said that it's like an ordinary rice in terms of taste, cooking quality, and aroma. The yellow-colored rice is not an issue. Children actually liked it, and they are willing to buy malusog rice when it becomes available to the market. And when we asked them of their of how much can they buy golden rice. They said around 20 to 50 pesos per kilogram. And we actually gave them 5 kilogram each household, and that lasted them 2 to 14 days. And they said that they will use malusog rice as an alternative to their table rice and serve it as much. Now, in terms of governance, no, in creating enabling environment, our works focus here on establishing structure and multi-level processes. No, example, the formation of technical working group at the national, local level, and also tapping counterpart committees. And also, we generate policy supports in the form of local resolutions, public statements. So the illustration here, this is the framework, but as you can see, we make sure that at the local level or at the provincial level, someone should be in charge, or our organization should be in charge. So for example, for supply, the lead agency here is the provincial agriculturist. And then for demand, the nutrition committee or the provincial health office or the provincial information officers. And then for governance, of course, the governors and the mayor. And this, in the case for Catanduanes, governor released an executive order to make sure that there's a people working, no, or trying to localize the deployment of golden rice in the province. And also, we are trying to lobby the integration of malusog rice into the existing programs. So we've done this already with PPAN. So golden rice now, which is a product of biofortification, is now being integrated into the PPAN, or the Philippine Plan of Actions for Nutrition. And we've also talked with DOST, DOS, Department of Science and Welfare Development, and they've actually included golden rice in their guidelines, no? Guidelines for their supplemental feeding program. So golden rice is now included, so they can now procure golden rice as part of their supplemental feeding program. And our talk with NFA is ongoing for the integration of malusog rice into their buffer stocks. Creating an environment or enabling environment requires stakeholder engagement. So we've done all these stakeholder engagements in the form of briefings, courtesy calls, dialogues, conferences, symposia, seminar, webinars, orientations, meeting, and other activities. And for this year, we've actually conducted this 294 stakeholder engagement, reaching out to 8,000 farmers. And apparently, as can you notice in the profile, we've reached out mostly in the intermediaries, no, particularly the policymakers. And we've produced the following outputs: 22 resolutions, legislative resolutions issued in 22 provinces and municipalities, 9 institutional policies issued, 25 statement of supports, 15 buyback arrangement. No, the local government units are the one buying the produce of farmers for their nutrition programs. And interestingly, some of our partners also initiated activities like Cook Fest and what's that? I couldn't read it. Feeding programs. Yep. Another important aspect in stakeholder engagement is that we should have a mechanism in place, no, a risk communication in place to manage expectations, public queries, and some emerging issues. So at PhilRice, we make sure that we have risk communication in place, especially in managing public inquiries, and also some urgent situations. So we have this in place to really make sure that we manage, whatever issues with our stakeholders, and to ensure that we keep our relationship with them. So this is my second to the last slide, just to share with you some challenges and the actions that we've taken. First is the first challenge is really to ensure how to ensure pure and high quality seeds. As I've mentioned earlier, we have a stewardship protocol, but we just really have to strictly implement that. And we're glad that the BPI NSIC is also coming up with a seed certification guideline specific for golden rice. So there's an additional parameter there that ensures that the seeds indeed is golden rice by ensuring that it's the yellow one. So that's in place. And then this high demand. No, there's a high demand, but we have low supply of seeds yet because, as I've mentioned, we're still in the process of seed multiplications. So what we've done is we prioritize areas with high incidence of malnutrition or vitamin A deficiency, and also there are ordinances that prohibit GMOs. Not that we are against organic, but yeah, some LGUs they prohibit GMOs. So it requires a lot of I think conversations to discuss that both can actually coexist. So what we've done, and we've also reviewed the organic law, and it actually says there that all we need to do is just to do zoning. So we have to clarify with the LGUs that we have to clarify the LGUs, the areas designated solely for organic farmings, and we avoid having golden rice cultivated in those areas with prohibitions on the cultivation of GMOs. So again, even in our target areas, there are still communities, or outside our target areas, there is still low awareness on the benefits of rice. So we just have to intensify or do more active information campaigns on the benefits of malusog rice in the target areas. And misconceptions, negative perceptions, and public opinions, as well as oppositions are still there. And we make sure that we have an urgent situation plan in place. We activate it as necessary, including preparation of holding statements and risk communication guidelines. So this is my takeaway slide. Identified based on the component that we've implemented. So for supply, it's really important that we have a stewardship protocol to be able to produce the highest quality seeds, and it has to be strictly implemented. And then for demand, lessons learned, we cannot do it ourselves. We need to tap existing information network to amplify our messages. Testimonies and early success stories are very useful to generate broader interest, and they serve as proof points in further conversations with our stakeholders. And lastly, for governance, this is really about seeking community acceptance and approval. And to be able to do that, we generate LGU legislative resolutions, institutional policies, and statement of supports. And we also leverage established institutional pathways, such as the National Nutrition Council, through their PPAN. The Department of Agriculture, we make sure that there's a memo from the DA to advise the regional offices to support the deployment of golden rice. And the deployment plan has to be localized. So that's where we create the technical working group or tap existing committees at the local government unit to do that. And also risk communication protocol, as I've mentioned, must be in place to manage public queries, urgent situations, and issues. And I believe stakeholder engagement is relationship building. So it has to be nurtured, it has to be maintained. And I think that's the key to ensuring that we successfully deploy the product. So I think that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Ronan. I'm sure everybody is now ready for our open forum. So speakers, please turn on your camera so we can put you on spotlight. To those who already sent their questions on the Q&A box, keep them coming. And those who place their questions on the chat box, please copy your questions and transfer them into the Q&A box. To those who are on social media, now is your chance to transfer here on Zoom. There's a link there going to this Zoom room. So here you can raise your questions. So let's start answering some of the questions here in the chat box. From Dr. Pachauri, I think this is for Dr. Teng. What's the difference between bioinnovation and biofortification?
Well, fundamentally, biofortification can take different forms, but that's just a new, let's say, discovery or invention, right? It's not an innovation until it gets applied and benefits either the consumer or the farmer, basically. So innovation is not an innovation, right? Until it's had a beneficiary in the end. And this we have to go through a whole process of regulatory approval, social licensing, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that will be my short answer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teng. Dr. Pachauri is really an active attendee today. He has another question about GMOs. How can you say that GMOs are safe when recent studies not conducted by Monsanto show a direct link to breast cancer from glyphosate? I think Dr. Parrott can answer that question.
Okay, I can try. First of all, glyphosate has been used in agriculture since I believe the 70s or 80s. It was used in agriculture for long before there were any GMOs around. So it is not correct to equate GMOs and glyphosate use. Secondly, if he has seen a study that shows a direct link to breast cancer, I would love to see it because I have not seen it. I do know that all the major agencies in the world, like the European Food Safety Agency, the US EPA, Food Canada, have not found any link between glyphosate and cancer. Now, there is one agency, the IARC, and they have claimed there is a potential for cancer, but the big if that the media always lives out is if you have adequate exposure, if you soak a tissue in glyphosate, yes, it could probably cause cancer, but in real life, that does not happen.
Thank you, Dr. Parrott. One last question from Dr. Pachauri. Does GMOs or do GMOs have an impact on allergies? I think Dr. Ronan can answer this, citing the golden rice as an example. Does golden rice cause allergy?
Yeah, well, in the case for golden rice, no, it went through the biosafety regulatory process, and one of the things that they've actually looked into it is the toxicities, and there was no evidence that it can result in toxicities, because basically the golden rice the beta carotene can only be translated into vitamin A as needed by our body. So your concern on overdose, for example, it's not possible.
Ben, can I add to this? 'Cause it's a very important question. I think, Dr. Pachauri, if we understand the process at the national level by which GMOs are approved for consumption and planting, you will know that as part of the process of evaluation, allergenicity is one of the criteria. If there's scientific proof that a GMO causes allergenic reactions, it will be rejected straight away, just like toxicity. Okay, those are all criteria that are used to screen out the fact that GMOs are safe for consumption and for the environment. I thought I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teng. So we have two questions here on golden rice from Aria and Muhammad. Who are the other countries that approved and commercially grow golden rice? And what is the price of golden rice? Maybe in the Philippines,
US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand approved golden rice for consumption, as food, feed, and for processing. But for commercialization, the Philippines is the first country to have approved it for commercial propagation. Now, in terms of price, as I've mentioned earlier, it is pretty much the same as conventional inbred rice. So whatever the price of inbred rice, it's just the same. Just to cite you an example, when we did the computations using the data that we had during the wet season production, so at 4-ton harvest or yield per hectare, and we factor in all the marketing cost and even the profit margin, we can sell golden rice using those data. We can sell golden rice at 33 pesos per kilogram wholesale. So it is comparable to a regularly milled rice in the market, because it uses the same crop management practices and inputs as an ordinary inbred rice.
Thank you, Dr. Sagado. Now for Dr. Parrot, how do we repackage previous or existing communication strategies to change the mindset of consumers who already have a negative attitude towards GMOs? That's from an anonymous attendee.
It is actually a wonderful question. Thanks for asking it. What I have been seeing is that I think for the problem has been that a GMO is this very vague concept. It's something that a farmer way over there does, and it's eventually going to affect me. But when we provide GMOs to a consumer, such that a consumer can touch it, taste it, feel it, their attitude about it changes very quickly. So here we have the pink pineapple, and believe it or not, consumers were willing to pay $50 for every pink pineapple. And knowing it was GMO, and the supply cannot keep up with the demand. We find consumers are buying GMO apples and they're buying GMO potatoes. So I think it really has to do with the being able to become familiar with the product. So I really want to congratulate Ronan for this concept of having sample bags of golden rice that you can give out to consumers so they can see it for themselves.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Parrot. We have a question here for Dr. Teng from Dr. Romero. In Asia, how much is the relative contribution or investment from the public sector for bioinnovation? Huge private sector share, unfortunately, is often dismissed as only profit-driven.
It really varies by country. In some countries, there's a very strong private sector investment, to make sure the innovations happen. But, the bug is this, okay? When you buy a mobile phone, for example, it's not a public sector product. It's a private sector product developed using a lot of science and technology, and yet almost every one of us has no qualms about that. Now, I think the same actually applies to technologies in agriculture. If the technologies are shown to be beneficial and farmers adopt them, farmers are willing to pay for them. Okay, so I think the profit motivation part is more on the part of the farmer. The farmer wants to ensure that if he pays for some technology, he's going to make a profit using that technology, but rather than the concern about whether the company is making a profit. Now, as you all know, the private sector exists partly because they can make a profit that they plow back in R&D, right, to improve the products. And we see this with mobile phones and computers and so on. So it's no different in terms of, I would say, even GMOs or crop products itself. Yeah. So it's a short answer to your question, Gabby. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teng. Another question for Dr. Parrot. Fierce GM critic Mark Linus was converted to an ardent GM advocate when he learned the facts and science of GM. But there are ideologies who oppose biotech not due to incomplete, reckless science, but more than on its corporate aspect. The undecided middle ground remains the battlefield. How much of the middle ground could be won by the social license approach?
I think almost all of it. I sort of think there's about 10% of the population that we're never going to convince no matter what. There's another 10% that is already convinced, and we have about 80% in the middle. And again, it's not about the facts. It's about being able to identify and knowing what's in it for them and trusting the messenger. They'll come over.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Parrot. Now, a question for Dr. Zagado. As far as I know, the Supreme Court issued a writ petition to stop golden rice and BT eggplant. What about the present situation?
Yes, the case is currently with the Court of Appeals, and it is under the sub judice, which means that we are restricted to make any comment, or disclose any information and matter under judicial consideration. So sorry that I cannot make any comment on that.
Okay, let's just wait when the time comes. Okay, from anonymous attendee, to what extent do the regulatory challenges and public resistance surrounding golden or malusog rice hinder its potential to address vitamin A deficiency? And how can these barriers be effectively addressed to ensure its successful implementation in regions facing malnutrition? I
Sorry,
think this
Tin,
was
can you
discussed.
repeat the question?
To what extent do the regulatory challenges and public resistance surrounding golden rice hinder its potential to address vitamin A deficiency?
Yeah, so that's really our challenge, because there are still oppositions. We just have to deal with it, and really, well, it's not the oppositors, that we are dealing with at the moment, but really we're working with the communities. We're explaining to them about golden rice. After all, they are our intended beneficiaries, and based on our experience, and we've actually also monitored the narratives, especially on media or on social media. There's already lesser traction on the oppositions, and we're glad that the communities now are more open now to accepting golden rice, and that's actually our experience on the ground. There has been a great interest in golden rice, so we are really just hoping that we can continue our work. So we have some legal challenges, but we trust that, and we believe in the technology. And in fact, if you interview our farmers and even our consumers, they say a lot about the good benefit of malusog rice. So we're really hoping the way we designed the program in the next 5 years, that's really targeting producing the rice requirement for the households at risk of vitamin A deficiency. And based on the DOST FNRI data, we have a prevalence rate of vitamin A deficiency at 15.5%. That's around 2 million of our household at risk of vitamin A deficiency. And we're really just hoping that we can address whatever legal, social problems that we have, so that we can really, create an impact, based on the design of the program.
Thank you, Dr. Sagada. We see raised hands here and we'll allow them to talk. The first one is Richelle Rabara. Please introduce yourself, your affiliation, and then tell us to whom are you going to raise the question. Richelle Rabara. Are you still there? Okay. We also have one more here, Joseph Rahinao. You are now allowed to speak whenever you're ready. I think they went to the washroom. Okay, let's continue answering the questions from the Q&A box. Here's a follow-up question to Dr. Parrot. So it seems that good knowledge on GMOs is not enough to lead into high acceptance of the technology, but values, beliefs, and ethical concerns seem to be the foundation for the formation of public perceptions. Yeah, it's just a statement.
It's a statement, yeah, and I think they summarized it very well.
Okay. So here's another question from Lusu. Many people do not believe in GMO, thinking that it is harmful to health and its benefits. But what about when, it moved. 20 years later, for a person who uses GMO food, how can we convince the regulators of GMO seed because they encourage natural seeds? Who wants to answer that question? Dr. Teng?
Not really.
It's about regulation.
Yeah,
Or-
but okay, let me just make 2 points, I think.
Okay.
As he correctly points out, after more than 20 years, in fact, of approving and deploying and eating GMOs, there is no proven case at all, of any, let's say, concerns, that have surfaced. That's one thing I would to mention. Now, the other is that, there are already countries that want to approve GMOs. They have the regulatory system in place to do so, right? More than 28 countries worldwide, roughly. Now, the encouraging thing is that I think we're starting to see a sea change among some countries like China, right? China, in fact, is starting to approve now. And I was just, talking to somebody recently about this. They're hoping that early next year, they will actually be planting GMO maize in the field. Now it's all experimental. So there is a sea change going on because of all the demands to produce more food, sustainably, stably, and so on, yeah? So yeah, I think the convincing comes, by the need, to actually benefit from having GMOs with certain traits that can help us, produce more food, buff against climate change, and so on, really. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Teng. For Dr. Sagado, this is from Miss Emelita Torino. Is there any possibility that seeds of golden rice be readily available to farmers in very low cost if fill rice will be ready for use or for mass planting? Low cost of seeds.
Yes, definitely. No, it's the same as inbred rice. So whatever the cost, for example, for registered seeds or certified seeds, it will basically just the same. Now, in terms of, as I've mentioned earlier, we are not really yet at the commercial level. We are not yet selling, for example, at Phil Rice because we are still awaiting the seed certification guideline, which means that golden rice at the moment cannot be certified seeds. So what we're doing, we're still at the so-called seed testing stage. No, we have golden rice cultivated in areas using high-quality seeds from Phil Rice. It's really for techno demo purposes or for promotion purposes. But eventually, as soon as the seed certification guideline will be approved, then we will start commercializing the golden rice.
Thank you. Another question for Dr. Parrot. If not causing such problems in health, why the Coca-Cola and other companies are limiting the use of food products with glyphosate traces in such crop products? That's the first question. Another question, you are a plant breeder. How do you see the future of conventional breeding and biotechnology to accelerate food production?
Yeah, I will not comment on the first question because I'm not familiar with that situation at all, so it would not be appropriate to comment with it. But plant breeding is essential. I mentioned that almost 3 times increase in productivity, in large part due to plant breeding. Conventional plant breeders have been increasing yields 1 or 2% per year over the long term. And the best biotech trait that you have is only as good as your conventional breeder. So the conventional breeders are always going to be developing the great traits, the great varieties that have high yield potential and stress tolerance, climate resiliency, pest and stress resistance, and then the biotech traits are going to make it extra special. So the two really complement each other very well. But without the plant breeding in place, the biotech would not get us very far.
Thank you, Dr. Parrot. We have a lot of questions on golden rice, so I think we could ask them to go to the website of Golden Rice. Dr. Sagado, can you promote any material that they could go to answer these questions? Because we do not have enough time to answer all of this.
Yes, in as much as I want to answer all the questions though by typing, but most of your questions are actually in our frequently asked questions. It's readily available in our webpage. So if you can just visit the PhilRice website, there's a page there where you can see the frequently asked questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sagado. So we do not have enough time to answer more questions. So let's give an opportunity for our speakers to say their final words, their parting words to our participants today. Let's start with Dr. Teng.
Well, I just want to say that, there's a lot of good ideas, lots of good discoveries, inventions. But ultimately, we need to get them to the marketplace, whether it's a consumer, a farm, or somebody else. Yeah, and to do that, you need to be very aware of the innovation process, which includes all the things we've been talking about, regulatory, governance, social licensing, and so on. So that's my quick ending message. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teng. Dr. Parrot.
Yes, in this era of climate change, where we all want sustainability, and we have many approaches to get there, And I think we're going to need every approach that we have. So whether you're an advocate of organic agriculture or an advocate of high-tech agriculture, we both have the same goals. We both want more sustainability, climate resiliency, and whatnot. And I really think one of the most powerful tools that we have is biotech. So it is really in everyone's best interest to get the word out so that we can take full advantage of its benefits environmentally, socially, economically.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parrott and Dr. Sagado.
Yes, golden rice indeed holds a great promise in enhancing the vitamin intake in the Filipino diet, because if we're actually going to look at our data, the average vitamin A intake of Filipinos is around 500 retinol activity equivalent, and golden rice, with the increment vitamin A intake that it can provide, 60% of the average vitamin A intake. And for the poorest quintile, it can actually provide 100%. So it's highly promising. So I really hope that this gets into the community in need as soon as possible, because this is really promising. I can't wait to know the impact that it can create to our communities, especially those that are vulnerable to vitamin A deficiency.
Thank you so much. Let's give another round of virtual applause to our speakers who generously shared their experiences and expertise for today's session. Okay, so for today, we took a deep dive into bio-innovations in agri-food systems. Dr. Teng defined what a sustainable economy is, which is characterized by development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Bio-innovations can contribute to the attainment of the key SDGs by addressing all dimensions of food security, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, maintaining farming livelihoods, and feeding a growing urban population. Dr. Teng reminded us that each of us has an important role to play in attaining a sustainable economy. Dr. Parrott talked about social license in the context of bioinnovation. He reminded us that communicating does not just focus on the facts. That's not enough, and we need effective communication. And this happens when there are shared values, soul, and stories. These efforts will lead to community approval based on legitimacy, credibility, and trust. So it is important to learn the facts, but the facts are not enough. And social license is local, but the players are global. We have an assignment from him. And we also heard updates from Golden Rice, a very promising bio-innovation in the Philippines. Dr. Sagado shared their strategies for facilitating an enabling environment for Golden Rice through establishment of structure and multi-level processes for policy support, integration into agri-nutrition, and stakeholder engagement. The deployment of Golden Rice is not without challenges, but each of these concerns were appropriately addressed with the hope that there will be increased vitamin A intake in the target population. As Dr. Sagado said, we need governance to ensure successful deployment of Golden Rice in the country. Stewardship should be in place to ensure purity, integrity, and traceability. Community acceptance and approval are important to generate LGU support. And stakeholder engagement is relationship building. So that ends our learning session for the last 3 days. We value your feedback about our webinar so we can improve our future events. Please click on the chat box. You will see a link there to our post-webinar survey, or we're going to show a QR code on the screen. Once you are done, your certificate will be auto-generated and sent through your email. Okay, so while you're also answering that form, we are inviting everyone to join the National Biotech Week in Cebu City. You can go to their Facebook page for more details about the event. And to cap off our webinar series, let's hear a message from one of our organizers, Dr. Antonio Alfonso. Asia Pacific Regulatory Program Leader of Corteva Agri-Science.
Thank you so much, Teen, and good morning to all. Before I proceed further, I'd like to greet everyone in advance a happy 19th National Biotechnology Week. We have reached this point to close this 3-day webinar series on biotech innovations for a sustainable agriculture. So for the past 3 days, we listened to interesting and informative presentations from our esteemed scientists and experts of biotech and related fields. On the first day, just to recall, the speakers were Drs. Ray Ordoño and Gabby Romero and Ms. Emma Eusebio. The topics focused on crop biotechnology, including new technologies driving the future of plant breeding, especially focusing on new breeding techniques, biotech approaches to mitigating pesticide use in agriculture in a sustainable way through GM technology, and the regulatory status of plant breeding innovation in the Philippines. Then yesterday, we listened to presentations from Drs. Marvin Villanueva, Cas Choresca, and Bong Mingala. They talk about animal biotech, specifically about developments in research and policy framework in GM animals or for GM animals in the country, in the same manner that biotech and aquaculture can contribute to meeting the growing demands for seafood in a sustainable way. And of course, we heard about the initiative of the government to develop and put into place a regulatory framework and guidelines for GM animals in the Philippines. Then this morning, Drs. Paul Teng, Wayne Parrott, and Ronan Zagado tackled the topics potential and challenges of using bioinnovation in a sustainable economy, the concept of social license for bioinnovation, and a technology developer's perspective on commercializing GM crops based on the golden rice experience. Please, colleagues, join me in thanking all of our esteemed resource persons for unselfishly sharing their knowledge and expertise. Join me also in thanking the organizers and sponsors, the Philippine Agriculture and Fisheries Biotechnology Program, ISAA, DA Bureau of Animal Industry, the Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, and Corteva Agri-Science. Thank you and congratulations to the men and women who work in planning and conducting this webinar. Our hosts and moderators, Dr. Ola Aldimita, Mr. Popen de Guzman, Dr. Bong Mingala, Ms. Karen Penaso, Dr. Arlene Bichaco, represented by Mr. Elijah Avante, Dr. Abe Manalo, and Dr. Tin Tome. Our IT and social media handlers, the secretariat, as well as the many other friends and colleagues who work behind the scene to make this webinar happen. At the center of the success of this activity are you, our fellow participants, for being here since day one, eager to learn and interact. We have participants from other countries, including Mexico, New Zealand, Pakistan, Ecuador, Nigeria, and probably several others. There's no doubt that we have reached out to a broad audience here and abroad. So as we close this webinar, I encourage you to pause, to ponder, be glad, and take pride in the fact that the Philippines is an early adopter, a leader, an active player in the biotech arena. Let's be thankful that our leaders in the early days had the foresight on how science is going to impact our world. And so early on, they put up a robust regulatory framework and put as well as a practical and dynamic policies and guidelines that continue to evolve to keep up with scientific advances and product developments so that society can reap the benefits of biotechnology. Let's be glad that the various government agencies and competent national authorities have come together and continue to work together. Finally, let's be thankful, like how I truly feel, that there are dedicated and passionate groups and individuals who, one way or another, are contributing to the development and advancement of biotechnology in the country because they strongly believe that biotechnology has so much to contribute in overcoming challenges in order to achieve and sustain farm productivity, increase income, national development, good health, and sustainable way of life. Be proud that we have progressive farmers and entrepreneurs who are willing and eager to try and adapt new and innovative technologies. I hope you are one of those men and women who support biotech. If not, please join us. The scientists and professionals, government officials, farmer groups and leaders, technology developers, regulatory and stewardship officers, lawmakers and policymakers, religious leaders, non-government organizations, media and medical practitioners, local government executives, and many more who support biotechnology. Thank you for all that you do for biotech and for the country, and please keep up the good work. I wish you all a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doc Tony. So again, we are projecting the QR code to the post-webinar evaluation. Please patiently answer this form so we can improve our events. Once you click on the submit button, you will automatically receive your certificate of participation through email. The slide decks and the webinar recording will be available on the ISA website next week. So please also register to our upcoming webinar on genetic tools for conservation and health. What's the role of gene drives? That will be on November 16 next week. So you can go to ISA website, isAAA.org, and register to this webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for your participation, and have a great day ahead. Mabuhay.
Again, thank you so much, everyone. And we're very happy that this is completely successful. And thank you, Tony, for all the pushing. And DA and BAI, and of course, the Livestock Biotech Center. Thank you, Dr. You can go to sleep now.
Thank you so much po, especially to our speakers. Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
And Paul,
And congratulations
po.
for
I know
a
you're-
successful webinar series.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. We're just waiting for 15 minutes for our participants to finish their survey. So, yeah. But
So
of
I will
course,
sign off now, and thank you for this experience. I really enjoyed today's session, and good to see a lot of you again that I haven't seen in a while. Tony, for
Okay.
Loda and others.
Good night, Wayne.
yes. Okay. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
This doctor, thank
Be a bit challenging.
Bye. Ang galing. Thank you, Dr. Tome.
Dr. Tome.
Thank you po.
Na-promote ka na ni Dr. Alfonso.
Sponsor daw. Sponsor daw ni Doc Tony.
It's about time siguro. O, kape na tayo. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, guys, I have to leave now. And yeah,
Okay.
I'll be online. I'll be traveling
Bye.
to Alabang. Bye-bye.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so
Bye.
much. And again,
Wonderful.
congratulations.
Thank you, Ronan. Ang galing-galing.
752 companies.
Thank you po for inviting me.
Check out Shopee Mall.
Oo, marami pa yan. Di pa tayo tapos.
Sige lang po.
Hanggang wala. Go, go, go. Yeah, thank you. All right, bye.